The name Pepsi has been a nickname that has been floating around the watch space for many years. The term was first coined for the Rolex GMT Master Reference 6542, the first iteration of their widely popular dual time zone watch. This was due to the red and blue colorway that was featured on the bezel, invoking images of the equally popular fountain drink, Pepsi. Funnily enough, Rolex also made one with a black and red bezel, resulting in the nickname Coke, completing both factions of the Cola Wars. Ever since then, watches of all kinds with a red and blue bezel tend to receive the Pepsi denomination as a nickname. However, most recently at the beginning of August 2025, Seiko revealed a brand new collaboration between them and Pepsi. This pair of limited edition Pepsi watches are probably the first major watch brand to directly collaborate with Pepsi, instead of the typical cheap, no-brand watches you'd find in the thrift shop. The two references are the SRPL99 and the SSK047. The SRPL99 is a dive watch based on the Pepsi logo from the 80s, touting a silver dial with blue accents, while the SSK047 is a GMT watch with a more modern interpretation using the contemporary logo, boasting an all-black case and dial with blue and red embellishments on the pips and GMT hand respectively. It was limited to 7,000 pieces for both models worldwide, and I knew that I had to get my hands on the SRPL99. So I set the notifications on every store in Canada that had stock Seikos and waited for the official release day of September to roll by. I waited day after day until one day I decided to check all the sites I signed up for. Well, they had the watches up, but they were all sold out. But that didn't make much sense because I put a restock notification for all these websites. Shouldn't I have at least been pinged at least once or twice? So me thinking that it was a mistake, I decided to go ahead and email them, and it turns out that the watches had already been sold before release day. What basically happened was these buyers basically put a deposit down for these watches, and essentially they were sold basically like before the watch even came out, which I guess I could have done myself, but how the fuck was I supposed to know that? There were 7,000 pieces, it was a Pepsi watch, it had Pepsi on the logo. I didn't know it was going to be that popular. So I did the next best thing, which was going to Chrono24 to see how resale values were. And oh my god, these people were charging 3 times the price of a Seiko 5 at about 1,500 Canadian dollars. And when I saw this, I knew I was probably never gonna own this watch, which physically left me like, but mentally I was like, I thought of owning a Rolex Pepsi because I really liked the colorway, but something held me back on planning to buy one. Then the Pepsi Seiko 5 announcement came out for this collab, and I was dead set on buying this watch, but seems like that it wouldn't be a reality. But hang on, not all is lost. If it were, you probably wouldn't be seeing this video now with this long runtime, but in my desperation, I started browsing the internet, and eventually I found the dial, like just the dial, being sold at a store called Wheeze Mods that basically sold Seiko mod parts for all your homage building dreams. And just my luck, they sold the SRPL99 dial for a whopping $149. Then it got me thinking, I already own 2 Seiko mods, but one of them I very rarely wear. So what if all I did was buy the dial, get a couple of extra parts, and basically rebuild the SRPL99 from scratch, but with my own flair and taste to it?
Delightfully devilish.
The 2 mods that I already owned were based off Genshin Impact characters. One of them is based off Sucrose, and the other one is based off Eula. And unfortunately, the Eula GMT, as I nicknamed it, it does not get very much wrist time because, I mean, I don't know, like the ice blue, it's pretty and all, but I just haven't really been wearing it. So, you know, if I could take a shortcut and not spend over $600 on rebuilding the SRPL99 from scratch, then I'll take it. So Eula will be my donor watch, and I must apologize to Lady Vengeance, but it's just how it goes.
Don't worry, there's a time and place for exacting vengeance.
You need to be in the right mood for
With the dial in my cart, I had to add in a few other things in order to get this more looking like a Pepsi watch rather than my original Seiko EULA GMT mod. To begin, I needed to procure a set of blue hands. The original SRPL99 looks like it has a set of metallic blue SKX style hands. Yo, Vincent from the future here. This entire sequence is really fucking boring, so I'm gonna do you all a favor and cut it out. You're welcome. The first part to come in is the dial, which Weezmod says it's OEM, and I guess it's OEM. If you think about it, it doesn't seem to make much sense since they claim there's only 7,000 of these in the whole world, but I guess they needed a couple for servicing. But who's pocketing all these spare dials to be sold on Weezmods of all places? Anyway, maybe I'm asking too many questions.
He was asking too many questions.
Take a look at that sunburst silver, the metallic blue pips, and the subtle vintage Pepsi logo at the 6 o'clock. Magnificent. Let's put that away in the meantime. Now, while we're waiting for the rest of the parts to come in, let's take a moment to talk about the history of the Pepsi watch, whatever that is supposed to mean. As mentioned previously, the Pepsi nickname comes from Rolex's GMT Master in the 1950s. Since then, they've produced many more color variations with upgrades along the way, like a better movement, aluminum, then ceramic bezels, larger cases, the whole lot. But you must be wondering why the watch comes with a red and blue bezel counting from 24. You see, the special thing about Rolex GMT Masters is that it comes with an extra hour hand meant for globe-trotting individuals to track a separate time zone. So while you may be in Eastern Standard Time, the extra GMT hand, which may be individually set, can be adjusted to show a different time. Then, the bezel features a 24-hour scale, which allows you to track a third time zone if you desire, but the two colorways allow it to quickly tell at a glance whether the second time zone being tracked is in daylight or nighttime. As for specifically red and blue colors, the legend goes that the whole reason the GMT Master exists is because Pan American World Airways, or Pan Am, requested a watch from Rolex that could be used to display two time zones for their pilots that would often be flying transcontinental passenger flights. Therefore, the red and blue colorway on the Rolex GMT Master was a nod to their partnership with Pan Am. And as such, any watch with a red and blue bezel colorway, not just Rolex, always received a Pepsi nickname. Observe, before we had this collaboration, we actually already had a Seiko Pepsi, which you can see over here. And there's also the Tudor Pepsi, the Timex Pepsi, the Laurier Hyperion with the Pepsi bezel, the Bulova Pepsi. Okay, what I've been trying to get at is the Pepsi nickname has been in the watch space for a very long time. But the fact that Seiko is the first one to officially claim the actual Pepsi watch name is kind of funny. Would you look at that? Sounds like the rest of the parts are in. Let's go take a look. Would you look at that? It seems the rest of our parts have arrived. Movement, bezel tape, hands, bezel insert, chapter ring, and bracelet all accounted for. Now let's get to work. This is a close-up of my EULA. It's not a bad watch by any means, I just don't wear it. So it makes sense to repurpose it. Sorry, Lady Vengeance, I like sucrose more.
I really like that.
Once we have the bracelet off and unscrewed the case back, it's a straight shot to getting the whole movement out. Sometimes it can get stuck, but check out this top secret watchmaker method for getting a stubborn movement out of the case. Now that it's out, we're gonna put this stuff over to the side and keep it in a box. Who knows what I'm gonna do with that? Sell it to secondhand mods, build another watch to give to a friend? Who knows? That'll be a problem for another time. Well, now we gotta get the new dial onto the NH36, which, because the original watch has the crown at 4 o'clock, the dial feet are in the wrong position for my case, which has the crown at 3 o'clock. So with a pair of sprue cutters, yes, the kind you use for model kits and Gunpla, I take the dial feet off and adhere it on with some top secret watchmaker's tape. Once it's affixed on to a degree that I'm happy with, it's time to put on the hands. Hands are real finicky, but I've managed to get a pretty good hang on putting them on. a little bit of rolled Rodico or watchmaker putty, stick it onto the end of the hand, and slowly apply it onto the pinion. Pretty straightforward, rinse and repeat. I put on the chapter ring after putting on the minute hand just to make sure the hands aren't too long and it won't scratch up against the side of the case. The second hand is probably the trickiest hand to put on. That tiny little pin you see under the macro lens is where the center hole for the hand is supposed to go. With the bare naked eye, it is a very small guide that has led to many people bending their hand or completely snapping the second hand pinion clean apart. But I am no amateur, nor am I a professional for the matter, but a bit of finesse and we have it on. Next, I'm going to recase everything and slightly screw the case back on, so if I notice dust on the dial, I can quickly take it out and remedy the situation. But now it is time to solve the bezel situation. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use a heat gun to melt the sticky tape residue and peel off the old bezel insert. But because I'm built different, code 4, I don't own a heat gun, I just jammed a pair of tweezers in until I could pry it off. I can't forget the bezel click spring, else it would just move back and forth without any of that clicky action we all know and love on dive watches. Getting off the rest of the sticky residue was not hard, a bit of 99% alcohol, and patience got most of it off. After applying the tape, I had to be gentle and make sure the bezel lines up with the chapter ring inside, just to have that little upper hand over Seiko quality control. Next, we click on the bezel, and most of the watch is done. I just gotta unwrap the bracelet, size it for my dainty little 5.5-inch wrists, and we are all good to go. Take a look at that. It's a lovely, gorgeous watch. It's honestly a step up from the typical Seiko 5, like the polish and finishing just feels a tier above Seiko at this price point. When it comes to styling this silver SRPL99, which though the one I own is a Seiko mod, its styling is essentially the same as the original. Throw it on any piece of vintage clothing from the 80s that you own. It's colorful, playful, and extremely fun. Wear it with your favorite varsity jacket, vintage athletic jacket, vintage athletic sweater, you get the deal. I only own a black rubber tropic strap, but I think this would look killer on a blue tropic strap, navy blue for the record, which again would look great on casual outfits to the beach or say the country club. But it's not bad on your typical office wear outfits, adding a bit of extra flair to the sea of light blue and white shirts you often see in pretty much every financial district downtown. Well, with the outfit discussion, the history, the build all out of the way, what other thing could I possibly be talking about? Well, my friend, have you ever heard of the Pepsi Man? In the 90s, the Japanese division of Pepsi invented a superhero by the name of Pepsi Man, whose whole superpower is to beeline towards anyone who is thirsty for some Pepsi. It is the most absurd and random ad campaign that has spawned one video game, but a whole boatload of memes. What do you think you're doing? Perhaps the most peculiar thing about this Japan-exclusive ad campaign is that it was entirely filmed and produced in the USA, showcasing quite a bit of American culture. The suburbs, desert gas stations, muscle cars, fast food restaurants, New York, LA, Miami? The narrator, who speaks Japanese, even has an American accent to his Japanese.
Pepsi Man big bottle cap present. Get Pepsi Man big bottle cap.
Surprisingly, despite the popularity of Pepsi Man, he has never been seen again after the end of the campaign in the late 90s, early 2000s. Until now. I thought it would be perfectly fitting to revive Pepsi Man and make a fake ad paying homage to Seiko and Pepsi Man's Japanese roots, while showcasing prime Americana. However, there is one problem. I don't live in America. Thankfully, in my part of Canada, there's a medium-sized town known as Toronto, which has something called seasons, so we have warm weather for the time being. No need for igloos or snowshoes just yet. And as a former academic, why don't we mimic an Ivy League aesthetic at the University of Toronto? Besides, a boatload of American production film at U of T if they ever need Stanford or Princeton or I don't know, wherever that guy went to in Goodwill Hunting, if they need a high school for some mean girls, or if they need some people for a superhero university, crime fighting. So I called up a few friends and I set up a day where I wasn't working and got to filming. I had a basic idea with my chicken scratch storyboards and I knew what I wanted the plot to be. But this time, instead of talking about Pepsi, why don't we talk about time? Because as a student, being on time, being punctual, and handing things on time is a very integral part of secondary education life. So a couple hours later, a few clean plates and reference footage for scale so we can ensure Pepsi Man is at least 6'4", it's time to send this off to my special in-house VFX team, who also happens to be one person and not paid, but they do a very good job and I'm very, very happy with the result. Take a look at Pepsi Man. Excuse me, do you know what time Atarashi Pepsi Seiko 5 watch. Gantei Nanazen. Pepsi watch get. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was a little bit longer than I anticipated, but hey, it means more content for you to watch. Make sure to hit that like button and make sure to hit that subscribe button so you know when my latest uploads are. Videos in the future are going to be about watches from my own personal collection. However, I can do reviews of other watches if you are willing to send them in, but for the most part, most of these watches are going to be from my own personal collection, and I hope you enjoy watching these videos while I go through their history, their specifications, and the styling. But in any case, take care. I'll see you in the next one.